Dad had his 85th birthday Tuesday.
Yes. Oh, I'm so just I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that my dad is here at 85 years old.
Yeah.
Because, he's had some health challenges and we're just, we've been just hovering over him and taking care of him. And now he's 85. So thank God.
Yeah, and he and I had a wonderful conversation Monday. I really enjoyed.
Oh, I'm so glad y'all could do that.
Yeah, we're gonna put that on the radio Friday night.
Oh, Friday night. Oh, wonderful. During your show.
Yeah, during the show.
Oh, wonderful.
He's my player of the week this week.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna do a pretty long piece with him. Do you know if there are tracks available from the new CD?
Yes, there are. You have to get them. Maybe Vincent could maybe email them over to you. I mean, I have some too, but I'll have to get my son to send it to you.
Yeah, if you could, I really appreciate it. So I've got some sound, but if I could drop that in, it'd be even better.
Okay.
To let people hear what he's just done, like the last.
Yeah, I'll definitely do it when we're off from this. As soon as we put this in.
Joe, are we ready to roll here, Daddy-O?
We are. You're recording?
I am.
Okay, then we should be good.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have any strange looking stuff in my face, do I?
Nothing in your teeth.
Is there spinning? No, you're good, sweet. You're great. You're looking beautiful.
Great.
And thank you for joining us here for this series, which has been a lot of fun so far. I want to go all the way back to your very start in life. What neighborhood did you grow up in?
Well, I like to say that I'm from Uptown and New Orleans East because half of my life, well, my mom, let's kind of get this together. My mom family is from Uptown New Orleans. And so we lived there for part of our lives. And then when I was in second grade, we moved to the suburbs, to New Orleans East. But we were always uptown every day visiting my grandfather. So we lived next door to my grandfather. So it was like, we'd go home to the East, but we were always there like every other day or every weekend. Visiting with my grandfather. You know how New Orleans families are.
Oh, right. You go out in the morning to pick up your newspaper and somebody from way across town is driving by.
Right. So we would, we were always uptown because my grandfather had this tremendous, huge yard. And when we were babies, when my grandmother was alive, there was a nursery school that we all went to that my grandmother owned. Well, my grandmother and my grandfather. This is my maternal family. Mm-hmm. And so we all went to that nursery school, and it was still operable when I was growing up. So we would go to the nursery school, we'd visit my grandfather, my grandmother. It was like we were in two neighborhoods.
Yeah. So getting a little bit of two different worlds in a sense.
Right. Of course, New Orleans East was like which is where I live right now. I moved to Washington, D.C. To go to college and stayed there for 10 years. But when I moved back home, I came back to New Orleans East, which is around the corner from my dad, up the street from my sister, around the corner from my other sister.
Yeah, so...
so we tend to live near each other.
Right. Well, that's... and you all have, through the years, have worked together a good bit, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I joined kind of late.
Right.
I really wasn't a singer until after college.
Yeah. Well, your mom is a concert pianist or was a piano player?
My mom is a housewife who plays piano extremely well. She's never really performed publicly. She's a homemaker, but she plays for us, and she plays extremely well because my grandmother and grandfather wanted all of their children to have music lessons. And so my mom is one of 16 children, and they all played instruments.
Wow.
And several of them played piano. I had my mother's eldest brother, who, if he was alive, would be about 102, played jazz piano and actually traveled with Jimmy Lunsford.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Played for Joan Lunsford. My mom always talks about meeting Joan Lunsford. She came to their house, and my uncle was playing for her. It's really strange.
yeah,
The stories in my family, the things we talk about.
A rich musical tapestry from across a wide range of music.
Right. So music was on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you weren't initially a singer, or weren't even, I read in one interview, confident you could sing, but
No, I'm really
you like
still
to
not
sing?
that confident. Really still not that confident either. You know, singing is, I never forget, I was backstage at Jazz Fest many years ago, and this was my second encounter with Betty Carter. And she said, Stephanie, because I'd gone to a jazz workshop with her in Washington, D.C., like a few months earlier than when I encountered her again backstage at Jazz Fest. And of course, I was just sitting backstage. We were actually backstage, I think, waiting for not Elvin Jones, but Art Blakely to come on. And so she said, Stephanie, singing is on the job training. The more you do it, the better you get. I've never forgotten that, you know.
Very good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I think in any kind of creative endeavor, generally.
Yeah, it's a process, not a well, it's you're just always in process, you know. It's a journey.
I think of it as an ever receding horizon. You know, you think you're closing in on something, but then something bigger than that becomes visible to you.
Well, a direction, not a destination.
Yeah. Well, I would assume you guys had a piano at home. Did you ever take like piano lessons?
Yes, I did. I had piano lessons. I had violin lessons. I just kind of sang to myself because I didn't, I couldn't figure, my dad was this avant-garde jazz player, and I grew up listening to all of that. And my mom played a lot of classical and spiritual music. And then, of course, Kent was just this phenomenal flutist, and even my older brother played saxophone. Like, we all did things in school bands and stuff like that. I just didn't know where I fit in, and I didn't really know, other than listening to records of great singers that my mom would play in the house all the time. I just said, wow, I could never sound like that. I could never sing like that. I couldn't figure out then you go to church and you sing, and then that's a whole nother sound. So I couldn't figure it out until one day it just kind of all came together for me. But I do know that, so this is really a real experience, that when I saw Lena Horne in New Orleans with her one-woman show, like that stayed with me. Like that was it for me. She was just the embodiment for me of what, what I thought I could possibly be. Because she's so dramatic, and, her range is interesting. And then, of course, her voice changed and developed so beautifully over the years, and she could just deliver a song to you, like, like Amazon,
Whether it was on the screen or on the stage.
Here it is. We're at the door. Here's the package.
Yeah, she could command the audience too.
Command the audience to do whatever she wanted them to do, and I just said, okay, that might be it.
Yeah, it's a
And of
powerful.
course, I went to hear Betty Carter, and I said, "Oh my God,
Well, maybe
that's it!
right, right. A whole
This
string
is
of
a
them.
whole nother thing,"
Yeah, right. Well, how old were you when you saw that Lena Horne show? Do you remember?
I was about 17. Mhm.
Yeah. So that was a pivotal, a very formative time.
Yeah, I was in high school, getting ready to go to college, but at that time, I just, I had no idea that I would ever end up as a singer.
But you went to
Uh,
Howard, right, up in Washington.
Well, I graduated from Howard. I actually went to Loyola for 2 years.
Started at Loyola.
I did 2 years there. I was interning at WWL. I wanted to be a news person.
Ah,
I was actually a news producer for Frank Davis when I was in high school.
wow.
Well, in my freshman year of college, rather.
Uh-huh. So you were in the communications department at
I was in the communications department, and we would intern at WWL because at that time the Jesuits owned WWL,
yeah.
right? And so, I remember Mr. Early, Mike Early.
All right, a legend in the business.
Yeah, all those people. Frank Davis, who was like a foodie on the radio before all this Food Network started. Like Frank was that. We would sit in the studio and restaurants would send plates and plates of food, and I'd be in there logging in the commercials. That was my job, and keeping him on point to take the breaks and pay for the show.
As the late Bill Elder would have said, well, all right.
That was my job. And I'd get to taste and sample the food along with him.
So you were kind of aiming in the direction of media, some kind of a job in media. Did you pursue that then when you transferred?
I did. I stayed in that. I interned at other radio stations, news stations. How I became a singer is just it's unbelievable to me as well.
Did you meet in Washington? Did you meet Shirley Horn in Washington?
Absolutely. I was working in radio again as a promotions director for a jazz radio station. So this is where it all started, transitioning. And Shirley's from Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I would promote jazz shows. So all of the big shows that came to venues like Blues Alley, the Carter Baron. What is the big? I actually met Sarah Vaughan at this beautiful venue, which has it's an indoor-outdoor venue. Oh my God, it'll come to me. I have memory issues sometimes, post-Katrina. Anyway, I would promote these shows, and so I got quite friendly with a lot of the musicians, and then my brothers were recording for CBS Records at that time. Kent was on CBS, and they were introducing. There was this producer, George Butler, who came to New Orleans and just introduced all these New Orleans musicians to CBS Records and signed them all. And Marlon and Kent were part of that, along with Terrence Blanchard, and Wynton was there already, and then Harry got signed, and so I was promoting everything CBS and Warner Brothers. This was when they had these jazz labels. Big, the big companies were producing records. I was promoting Miles Davis, his last few records of Warner Brothers and all of that. And so Verve Records released Shirley Horn, and I, her producers would call me, Richard Seidel, and they, anything that I could do to promote jazz, I would do it. So I would go to all these venues and I would hear all this live music, which was, hey, the best of both worlds. And so I met Shirley's drummer and Doug Karn, who was great friends with her. Steve Williams was her drummer. Right. Oh my God, Steve Williams is.
Oh man, for a long time they made such great music.
Yes, And so I just got friendly with Shirley through relationships with the musicians, and oh my God, I can see her now. She had her husband Shep, who's so wonderful. He's just a great guy, and they were just beautiful people. He built this room on the back of her house just to put her. I think it's like I don't know, how big is a Steinway? Like the biggest Steinway there is, like the concert grand that you can almost tap dance on.
About 13 feet, I think.
It's like a 13-foot piano. And he built this little room on the back of their original house. They never moved. And she said, come see my new Steinway. And it was like the whole room was a Steinway. Oh my God.
That's wonderful.
But if anybody deserved a Steinway, Shirley Horn deserved that Steinway. Oh my God. I loved her.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to get to interview her once and then meet her when she came to New Orleans and played at UNO, actually.
Yeah, wasn't
really
that
enjoyed
great?
that conversation, and she's just fantastic. Yeah,
She was such a lady, and she loved music, and she was so down to earth. Oh my God. She was just everything that I had hoped she could be. She was just beautiful, the most gifted singer, piano player I'd ever met in my lifetime. I miss her so much.
Yeah.
I miss her so much.
Great artist, and just a warmth came out of her. I could experience even in the brief time I had met her.
Here's the Life. Oh my God, that record.
Yeah, that's one that's kind of that you have had a chance to play in some pretty prominent circles to perform.
Yeah, well, I listened to it. I called Shirley. I said, I've listened to Here's to Life every day for an entire month. And the single record I listened to. Seriously, I had this little CD player, and I would just listen to it all day long.
Yeah.
So I mastered all of her inflections, I tried to copy her, but you can't copy Shirley.
No,
it's impossible.
The phrase inimitable comes to mind. She had such a use of space.
Oh yeah. I love that.
Yeah. But had that great gift for using space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did meeting her get you encouraged to perform?
Well, no, actually, I met her after I started. Well, I sort of, knew her and promoted shows for her, but I didn't really meet her until after. I just had this. I was in a club on my birthday one night, and my brother was playing, and he just jokingly said, because he knew that I sang around the house all the time. And so he said, so you want to come and sit in on your birthday? It was just like a dare, literally. And my sister, Rachel, was like, do it, just do it. You're always singing in the house, just do it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so we went down to this club, Tacoma Station Tavern, and this great club owner, Bobby Boyd, he was just crazy. This was like one of the hottest spots in Washington, D.C. It was like on the line of D.C. and Tacoma Park, Maryland. And Doug Karn was playing, my brother. And so they, it's okay, we're going to bring Stephanie up. So Doug just says, okay, I don't know if you know Doug Karn.
I don't.
Now that's a person you should interview. I'm telling you, he's fabulous. He goes, okay, pretty baby, what do you want to sing? He's from like Florida, and his musical knowledge is incredible, and the people that he's played with, So he like started off playing in like the gospel Kojic churches when he was like 5 years old, so he's really interesting. And she goes, okay, pretty baby, what do you want to sing? And so I'm looking at him, I go, okay, I'll sing I Remember April. And so he goes, so what key are you in? I said, I don't know. So he tinkles a little bit. He goes, okay, we in C, okay, we're in C. And the band kicks off, and I just sang I Remember April. And I can remember I almost fainted. Like I had to lock my knees back because I was like about to faint. My eyes were closed. And then the audience just like, yeah, yeah, we like her. It was so crazy when I finished, and of course, I knew all of the nuances, like I knew when to lay back and let the musicians solo because, I've witnessed jazz all my life, and listened to it. So I knew, I sort of knew how to handle myself a little bit on stage. And so when I finished the song and the audience clapped and the club owner was like, yeah, she's great. We like her. So Doug comes over to me and he gives me $100 bill. He said, listen, let me tell you something. It's how he talks. He still talks like this today. He goes, don't ever sing for free because you got it. And he gives me $100. And then he sends me a bottle of champagne because it was my birthday. And that was it. That's how my career started. And then the club owner goes, okay, I wanted to sing happy at happy hours, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so I literally, like the next week, I started singing these happy hours.
Gig, yeah.
Just me and Doug.
Yeah, that's right. As Charlie Parker said, now is the time.
Now is the time. This pandemic has just taught me so much, about, life and what is important, and I actually like being at home. I'm a school teacher by day.
Right.
I miss the kids. I really do. But in a strange way, I've rested in a way that I've never rested before. But I'm so sad inside for all of the people, who are dying. I fought off COVID. I had a mild case of it. And that was scary. I lost my sense of taste and smell. And I was really lethargic. And I had chills, but I never developed that, desperation to breathe, and that was just scary, being on the phone with my doctor. I have an ear, nose, and throat specialist and an allergist anyway. And she sort of said, well, Stephanie, I think I called her frantic. This was before they even announced that the loss of taste and smell was a symptom.
Right.
So I just took a shower and I sprayed some perfume on and I couldn't smell it. And so I said, that's my cheap perfume. Let me get my good Chanel because, and I sprayed my Chanel on. And I couldn't smell that. I was like, whoa, I can't smell Coco Chanel. Something's wrong. So I called my ear, nose, and throat doctor, and she goes, it's okay. I just think you're having a sinus thing. It's Stephanie, it's Jazz Fest time every year around this time. It's spring, the trees are in bloom, you get allergy issues. She said, but, and so this was a, what do you call it? A tele appointment?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't even go in her office. I said, yeah, but I know we manage my allergies, but I've never, ever, ever lost my sense of taste and of smell. Something's wrong. So then a week later, they made the announcement that this was a COVID, symptom. And thank God, I quarantined myself from my family. I said, look, something's wrong with me. I don't know what this is, but everybody needs to stay away from me. So of course, everyone's calling me like every 5 minutes to be sure, I'm not, really sick at home,
Right.
So, but I learned so much, just from that experience. Thinking about Jazz Fest, like, will it ever be the same again? Will any performance ever be the same again? What will it look like? I mean, I have a website, but I'm not really a prominent person on the internet. I do Instagram and I do a little Facebook, but I'm not really jazz is about meeting people and shaking hands and selling CDs. A month ago, I just done 4 shows in North Carolina, in Charlotte. My birthday is actually February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. So I did this Valentine's weekend show. Me and my wonderful arranger, piano player, Mike Esno, came along with me. I don't always travel with, all my musicians, but whenever I can, I try to bring at least my piano player. So we picked up a great bass player, drummer, and a guitarist in Charlotte. It was great. The shows were sold out. We had this fabulous time. And COVID, and then my upcoming shows, we were talking about Doug Karn. I was due to perform with Doug in Daytona, Florida, in April, and that was canceled.
Right.
So I've got to figure out my career now, on the internet.
Well, yeah, for the time being, that's about the only place it can be.
I don't know, in all seriousness, Fred, I'm nervous. Like, what this virus can do, we just don't know yet.
Yeah, it's a lot of mystery, a lot of unanswered questions in our lives right now. I mean, more than usual.
Jazz already suffers enough.
Right.
We already have dwindling audiences.
Right. Well, I always say there's nobody goes into philosophy, theology, poetry, or jazz for money.
Knowingly. Right. So I started on a dare.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was fate. It's being a part of the world of jazz has enriched my life as a performer, because I was an observer and a supporter, a promoter,
Right.
and then a performer.
Well, once you got started there in DC on doing regular gigs, have you pretty much continuously been working and trying to let's say evolve into out of media into music?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got to get used to this technology.
That's all right. I say evolving out of a media career into a musical career. Is that how you kind of envision what happened to you?
Well, I had the good fortune of having Kid Jordan as my dad and Marlon and Kent Jordan as my brothers, and my sister Rachel, who's a classical violinist. I had folks in music around me, so they were supporting me. My first gigs were with Kent and Marlon, of course, Doug Karn.
Right.
So they supported me, and of course, when I called my dad and said, "Dad, I think I want to start singing like a little bit more serious," he said, "Oh my God." Oh my God. Don't quit your day job.
Right.
And so I followed that advice. So I've always had a day job, so I'm, my dad always had a day job,
Right. Right.
So it worked. It works well. He says, listen, jazz can be your, how does he put it? Your advocation, not your vocation.
Well, and he's put himself in a position where he could play what he wanted to with the people he wanted to,
right,
and still raise a family and do all the things he needed to do.
And I'm so glad he did that, because we are so close as a family. And, I just love my dad and my mom. My mom is incredible. I'll just tell you, the secret to my dad is my mom.
Amen to that.
She keeps him together. She really does. She keeps us all together. You know, they met when they were 18 years old. My uncle, Alvin Baptiste, introduced my dad to my mom. They were frat brothers in college, and they played in Southern University's marching band. And, you know, my dad met my mom one weekend. He came up to meet my mom because my uncle Alvin was dating my Aunt Edith, who's a great poet. You know, I sing her music now in my shows too.
Oh, good.
He wrote this great tune, "My Life is a Tree." Oh my God. He recorded that actually on the very last record that he did called Late. You know, of course, you know, he transitioned the day before the record was to be debuted at the Jazz Fest. Oh my God.
I know that was such a sad and poignant moment
That was
in New Orleans music history.
Yeah, that was. So one of the things that I sang on the record with my dad, you know, that's going to be released, is I just did some vocal leads sort of on this tune, "Music Came," you know, that
Oh, right.
that my uncle did with the great piano player Henry Butler. Yeah, I miss Henry Butler. I miss my uncle so much. And that's another thing, you know, my uncle Alvin Baptiste gave me so many performance opportunities. Like, he would invite me down to Snug Harbor. He would put me on the stage at Jazz Fest. You know, you learn so much from musicians as a singer. You know, all the musicians that I've played with, you know, Doug Horne, my uncle Alvin Baptiste, Kent, Marlon, I learned so much from being on the stage with them. You know, and then of course I would always, you know, watch all the great singers like Nancy Wilson and Abbey Lincoln, Shirley Horn, you know, seeing Sarah Vaughan perform live was just amazing. Betty Carter performing live. I actually saw Arthur Prysock live. You know, you know, I always watched the old iconic, oh my God, Jimmy Scott. I met Jimmy Scott twice in life, once at Blues Alley and then backstage at Jazz Fest. And Jimmy Scott, you know, gave me an autograph. I lost it in Katrina. I lost so many great autographs that I collected over the years. But I never forget, he signed my bill, the program from Blues Alley, and he just, I said, I'm trying to learn how to sing, and I'm watching you, and I'm listening to you and Shirley and Abby and all the great singers, and Nancy, and he just wrote, "Stephanie, always sing your heart out. Love, Jimmy Scott." And you know, when you watch Jimmy Scott, that's what he did, right? He would, you know, I don't know, Jimmy just gave you I don't know who sang their heart out more. I don't know if it was Lena Horne or Jimmy Scott. I think it might have been Jimmy though. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a voice. So that gives you an idea of who I listen to.
Yeah.
The singers that I listen to.
Did you by chance ever hear Carmen McRae in your
Oh my God. Carmen McRae. Not only did I hear her, I met her. Carmen McRae and also Etta Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Those two, oh my God. Those are two more of my favorite singers that I got to hear and sing. And then also another singer that I love, Gloria Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just, I love these classic singers, you know, like Gloria, Carmen McRae. Oh my God. I have a funny story. I don't know. I can't really share it. I'll share it with you outside of the interview.
All right.
A private story
McRae.
that Shirley shared with me when Shirley and Carmen recorded together.
Oh, right.
You know, because Carmen played, Shirley played for Carmen.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to a little bit of a tease here in the interview. For who knows when we might reveal this. I did. I didn't ever meet Carmen McRae, but one night at Snug Harbor, I was standing, I think, watching Ellis Marcellus, and I turned
Mhm.
around, and Carmen McRae was standing right behind me. She'd been in town playing the Blue Room. Your dad might have been in the band.
Oh yeah, my dad played the Blue Room so many times. And that's another thing, behind all the great singers, Gladys Knight, Aretha. My dad played. That's how I got to meet Lena Horne, because my dad was in the band with her. For what? She was here for a month, 2 months, every night, and then he got us tickets, and we got to go backstage, and I got to meet Lena Horne. Oh my Lord, she was so hip. Like, she was on stage in these glamorous gowns, and then when I met her backstage, I'll never forget. She was wearing tweed pants and boots and a leather jacket and a riding in a cute cap, she was so beautiful.
Yeah.
On and off stage, she was just impeccable. Oh my God.
Yeah, quite a strong, very strong person, in her beliefs and the way she professed them.
Oh yes, yes. I mean, that's why I did the record that I produced on my own label. Yesterday When I Was Young, a tribute to Lena Horne, because she made sacrifices in her career that she didn't have to make. Yeah. Think about this. I mean, Lena Horne was like fair-skinned and gorgeous, and she didn't run from who she was as a Black woman. And she was out front with the civil rights movement. She stood side by side next to Martin Luther King, and she just, she was blackballed. She didn't care. Yeah. She stood up, but she was always that way. If you look at her, there's a wonderful, great performances documentary on her life she was amazing. She had grit, but she understood who she was as a woman, as a Black woman, as an entertainer. She understood herself, and she just kept going for it. And I think, I'm sort of that way. I'm real definite about what I want to sing, what I don't want to sing. I never really, I would never publicly say, oh, well, I don't like that song. But there's certain songs that if you really watch my performances, or I just don't sing certain songs that a lot of singers sing. They just don't fit me. And so I don't get into, what my repertoire should be. I just sing what I like to sing, or I sing songs. If someone suggests a song to me, like I had a fan who, when I put out a blurb that I was going to record a tribute to Lena Horne, and he sent me an email and said, are you by any chance going to record Love in this Lena Horne thing? And I said, it wasn't on the list at the time. And I added it as a result of a fan emailing me, because I said, oh, I should do that to him. And I did.
That's a great
record. I did.
Beautiful job. And boy, what a wonderful band you had.
Oh my
goodness. The guys on that, just killing it, man.
All local musicians. I tell everybody, we have the greatest musicians in the world in New Orleans.
Hallelujah and amen.
I can find just about, not that I'm not open to performing with musicians. As a matter of fact, I'm preparing right now to record with a great drummer, Joe Chambers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he called me like 2 weeks ago and said, Stephanie, I want you to record with me. I know we got COVID going on, but it's going to be over. So I'm going to start sending you some music, and you need to work on this, and we're going to get together.
Cool.
Sure, Joe. I can't wait. I mean, like, he's an iconic drummer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't wait. So I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. We're trying to record in June, provided travel restrictions and
circumstances permit.
Circumstances are better.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about you being in Washington for a decade. Then did you move back to New Orleans from Washington, or were there other stops?
I moved back home, and I was here I moved home, and I was home for about 5 years, and then Katrina hit, and then I left and went back to Washington. So, oh, I have something on the stove. Can you pardon me a second?
Please. This interview's got everything.
I needed to turn that pot off.
Yes, very good. I'm glad you thought of that.
I cook a lot. I'm in the kitchen.
Oh, that's right. Hey, you know,
actually.
that's what we're doing these days.
Oh my God, I love to cook. I cook every day now, and I also have to exercise,
Well,
which
you
is
know,
one of my passions.
well, I wanted to ask you about that also. Now's as good a time as any. The jazz Pilates. How
Oh
did that
my
come
God.
about?
I created jazz Pilates in my garage, working out to John Coltrane's Love Supreme. I mean, that's like my favorite record of all times. And so I listen to, obviously, I'm Kid Jordan's daughter. I listen to a lot of John Coltrane.
Right.
And so I was taking Pilates and yoga, and I started doing these movements to the Love Supreme, and all the wonderful movements. And it was birthed out of that. And then I started using my brother's CD, Out of This World, Kent's.
Oh, yeah, great record.
CD.
Yeah.
And so the movements just, lend themselves to that. It's a wonderful expression and experience to do Pilates to music, especially John Coltrane's music and my brother's music as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Had you been involved with Pilates or other kinds of sort of combination music and exercise for
Well,
you?
what I noticed is that when I would take classes, there was no music. The classes were basically the leader giving you instruction or certain commands to do movements, but there was no movement. There was no music. And in the yoga classes, it was just really quiet, atonal kind of,
All right.
sounds, and for me, I just needed something more. So,
Yeah. Well,
so I went to John Coltrane.
pretty good place to go. Yeah. I love,
Whenever you need more, go listen to Train.
well, particularly on that 4-piece suite there.
Oh my God, that suite is just incredible. I love all the Netflix documentaries, because there's a wonderful Train documentary. There's a wonderful documentary of Miles Davis, So whenever I can, and of course the books, I read Chasing the Train years ago.
Right.
Yeah, when I was very young, I read that book.
Well,
So,
I'd like the title of your dad's forthcoming CD, Last Train, Trane, to New Orleans.
yeah. Oh, my dad. My dad. I don't know who could know more about music other than my dad and Alvin Baptiste. Maybe Kent.
Yeah.
My dad has exposed us to so much, so much music, and it was so sad again, this COVID situation, to lose Ellis Marsalis. That's such a loss.
Yeah, I think about
musical knowledge and experience, but he, his footprint will be here forever because he left his sons here to carry on his legacy, and of course all of his students, and then his recordings,
Right. And and a lot of us, I include myself in a group of people who never studied with him formally, but learned a lot from him.
Yeah, just a lot of musical knowledge.
Just being around the guy, was informative.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting when you think about people like Mr. Marsalis and my uncle Alvin lot of people call him Bat, Uncle Alvin. And my dad, they know so much. They knew and know, my dad's still here, so much about music, but they're just so down to earth.
Well, your dad says,
pleasure to be around,
Yeah, he talks all the time about, from a philosophical point of view, you got to marry the academy and the street.
Yes.
You need to be knowledgeable, but you also need to be experienced.
Correct. It is.
Do with that knowledge.
It's a very comfortable marriage of knowledge in the street. That is so real.
Yeah. Well, you were doing the Pilates on a regular basis at the museum, weren't you? The Jazz Pilates?
Yes, at the Jazz Museum, the New Orleans Jazz Museum, which is my new favorite place. I tell everybody, with folks who are planning to visit the city, and I said, listen, don't miss the Jazz Museum. You've got to get there. And it's so great to be able to say that. Isn't that great? Before you used to, say, oh, the Old Mint Jazz Museum, but now you're getting away from having to say the Old Mint so much.
Right.
Because people really know it now as the Jazz Museum. It's taken on that personality. It's making its mark. The exhibits are great. Aren't they just fabulous exhibitions? And to be able, and so interactive, to do jazz Pilates there. They have jazz yoga.
Right.
All of the parties and receptions that are taking place there. I brought my kids there to see the exhibits, to perform in I actually performed for my children. I surprised them.
Yeah.
With a performance in the hall. They had no clue that I was going to perform for them. Yeah. So that was just wonderful.
What are you teaching these days, Stephanie? What is your education?
I actually teach children pre-K through 8th grade. So with the pre-K, with the babies, I call them, I do general music with them. Simple songs. We sing and dance and play. And I bring in guest musicians to perform for them and introduce them to sound in general and hearing their voices. If I may, I can truly say that I really miss my pre-K class. And then the older grades, I have a small gospel choir from ages grades 3 through 8, 3rd through 8th grade, and we have an incredible time. We hire musicians. I'm so proud of my school, Fannie C. Williams Charter School, which we are arts in just arts, how do you say it, based. We're an arts-based school. So we have visual art, vocal music, computer programming, a wonderful physical education department. So we have all of the enrichment. We have a strong enrichment team that we provide these wonderful everyday, day-to-day classes and activities for children. So I miss my gospel choir. We really rock it. We do performances around the city at, places like Christmas in the Oaks. We do things like public performances like that. I was hoping even to get them to Jazz Fest really soon, because I've got some kids who can really, really sing.
That's great.
Yeah. And I also, even though we're primarily a gospel choir, we do jazz choir as well. So I introduced them to a lot of music. As a matter of fact, they love Abby Lincoln. We sing "Throw It Away" in a choral formation. Isn't that great?
It is. You could do the Shirley Horn songbook for these kids.
We do a lot, yeah. So I really enjoy my life as a choir director and doing general vocal music with my babies.
Yeah, I always say one of the great things about teaching too is, particularly when trying to communicate to very young students or even preteen and early teens,
Mm-hmm.
you got to really know what you're talking. You got to get it together in your head to be able to communicate it in a way they can understand and appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Children are amazing, because I've learned so much from my kids. I mean, and I work in a school where children are economically disadvantaged and also have some academic challenges. So, but the one thing about the arts, and my dad says this all the time, you cannot predict genius. It comes from everywhere.
Right.
When I tell you, I've got some kids who can really sing. I mean, some voices. As a matter of fact, our choir is called the Voices of Fannie C. Williams. I enjoy my day life. That's
Yeah.
my day. That's my day job.
Yeah. Well, what about that night job? Are you before all of this hit? Were you still doing some pretty regular things in the city?
I was performing at a hotel for a year, almost 2 years, and then that stopped about a year ago. So, but that was a lot of fun to do a hotel gig. I had never really done a hotel gig every weekend for a long time. That was really good to do that. And then I travel and do small festivals on weekends and small clubs when I can. So yeah, I get it in. I do just enough to keep my life balanced. I I like small clubs, not too small, because
Right.
I like to get paid too.
Yeah. Like another zero or two on the check.
Yeah, but jazz societies find me and bring me in a lot. So I really enjoy the support that's out there. I think if you balance your life as a musician, as a performer, it just depends on what you're looking for.
Right.
I'm always looking for opportunities to do things, but I can honestly say that I've always had steady work. So there are times when the phone might ring a little bit less, but I get just enough to keep me out there and keep me going. And I'm always appreciative of the gigs that I get locally. The small festivals, the big festivals. Jazz and Heritage has been so kind to me, and hiring me, and then I do weddings. I do small receptions. However it comes, I take it. There are a couple of places that I tend not to perform in, but for the most part, I get enough to keep me busy, and so I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the career that I'm having.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It goes on from here. We're not just talking about the past here. We're looking at the future as well.
Right.
And one of the people I admire most on the planet has lived that kind of life. Jermaine Basil,
Oh my God.
has lived a life that she's found very fulfilling, doing all these things you're just describing.
Listen, I'm gonna go back to something we talked about earlier. I can remember as a little girl hearing Jermaine in the park playing with Ellis,
Right.
and those memories take me, just hold me, She was so fabulous. She was just so fabulous, when I think about my life, and I think about all the live performances that I've witnessed, just from a child, because we went everywhere. When someone was performing in the park, I can remember the early days of Jazz Fest when it didn't smell so good.
in a number of ways.
And the food, I'm just going to go on record with this one. And the jambalaya was horrible.
Documented right here, ladies and gentlemen.
But the one thing you can say about Jazz Fest, it has just evolved into something incredible. I remember the CAC when it was literally a hole in the wall. Do you remember that?
Us was like a stage, but not much else, isn't it?
No, I'm serious about that. It was literally a hole in the wall, and my dad was performing, and we were like, "Why are we here? What is this? This broke down building? Why are we here?" Listen, I remember that. Okay, so the New Orleans artists, Mr. Marcellus, Miss Basil, they're the ones who, were out there doing all these fundraisers, raising funds for all of the arts organizations, I remember that as a kid, and a whole lot of other folks too, Lady BJ, I used to love to go and hear Lady BJ. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so many.
And what's his name? Plays the saxophone and the
bagpipes.
James
Rivers.
James Rivers. Oh my God.
Another great.
Another great.
He's still going too.
Yes, indeed. That
is germane.
Yeah, those are the folks who, that I remember, just watching them perform as a kid. It's just great memories. We talk about where did I grow up? We grew up all over the city and oh my God, just New Orleans is a great place to grow up in. It just really is.
Even at my advanced age, when I arrived here, I found it a good place to grow up in.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, this time of COVID is, it's a lot of time. I've spent time just going through old record books, organizing things, photo books, looking at, remembering so many events and all the things that we did here. It's just incredible. It's a wonderful life.
Sounds like a movie, Stephanie.
Speaking of movies, when we got disconnected, and I was trying to reach you back, and I'm looking at your name, Fred, and I'm thinking of one of my favorite movies, Holly Golightly, and
oh yeah,
and there's this character Fred Baby.
Breakfast at Tiffany's, yeah.
Yeah, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and her brother's name is Fred. Is it? Yeah, Fred, and she calls everybody Fred. Fred Baby. I remember that line from that movie.
Yes. Like Lester Young with his lady this and lady that, lady Day or lady whomever. Everybody's a Fred, everybody's a lady, got those things. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, clock has ticked down to almost zero here on our time allotment, but thank you so much, sweetie. It's really been.
I hope we accomplished something.
Yeah,
I've been laughing the whole time.
I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. I, for one, have. So thank you very much.